Ready to unlock your notary potential and boost your income? It's time to move beyond basic notarizations. In Notary, Niche Navigator by Derek Spruill, learn the most profitable specialized services. Learn to master high-demand areas like loan signings, international apostilles, and I-9 employment verifications. This essential guide offers new ideas to help you become the go-to expert in your field. Grab your copy of Notary, Niche Navigator by Derek Spruill today and start building your empire.
Welcome to Notary Knowledge. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Marylyn. Today's focus is from solo to CEO, scaling to a multi-notary firm. We are coming at you with a bold, direct look at what it really takes to grow.
Yeah, and this is our Money Making Monday edition. So our big profit pivot for today is this: leverage volume through delegation.
Exactly. As a savvy strategist, you have to realize that true wealth isn't just about how many signings you can do yourself. It's about building a system. But before we get into the weeds today, we've got some quick housekeeping.
Right. For those of you listening, you definitely need to encourage yourselves and your teams to buy the Notary Knowledge Soaks by Derek Spruill. They are game changers. You can find them by visiting the Notary Knowledge website.
Absolutely. And while you're there, make sure to check out our video podcast, No Notary with Eddie Montes Travis, as well as my quick hit segment, Marylyn's 90 Seconds of Notary. Lots of great content dropping there.
For sure. Okay, so let's get right into today's topic. Imagine your business is just absolutely booming. You've got more clients than you can handle, so you do what literally any entrepreneur does. You hire people to help with the load.
Which is usually a great thing.
Right. In any other industry, this is when you pop a bottle of champagne. But in the notary and loan signing industry, if you just scale up by hiring people the quote-unquote normal way, you aren't going to earn a celebration. You might actually make your entire operation illegal overnight.
Yeah, it's a really profound paradox because growth usually implies stability, right? But in this specific sector, growth plunges you into a complete operational minefield. Scaling from a solo practitioner to a regional agency, it's not just a matter of finding more workers. It requires a fundamental ground-up redesign of your legal and financial architecture.
And that friction between growth and compliance is exactly what we are focusing on today. We're looking at a massive stack of sources, stuff like the Virginia Notary's Public Handbook, deep legal analyses of labor classification laws, business scaling roadmaps, and, the intricate fine print of professional insurance policies.
Our mission today is to figure out how a successful solo entrepreneur makes that terrifying leap from doing the groundwork to becoming a high-level logistics CEO, and doing it without getting crushed by the system.
Because it's heavy. To really understand the complexity of that leap, we have to start with the fundamental shift in the business model itself. Like we've talked about in our prior episodes, when you operate as a solo mobile notary or a signing agent, you are a direct service provider.
Right. You're the one driving to the client's house. You sit at the dining room table, you verify the IDs, and you execute the real estate closing. Because you are the one doing the physical labor. You capture 100% of the fee.
Which is usually, around $150 to $250 a transaction?
Exactly. It's a high-margin, transaction-based model. But the bottleneck is time. You only have so many hours in a day, and you can only drive so many miles before you burn out.
So you decide to leverage volume through delegation. You decide to scale and build an agency. Instantly, you are no longer doing the signings. You are delegating them.
And that one decision completely alters your financial reality. A regional agency survives on a split fee margin. If you charge a title company a gross fee of, say, $175, you might pay the independent notary in the field $100.
Mm-hmm.
Then you still have to cover your operational overhead, software, staff, insurance. That usually runs roughly $10 to $20 per file.
Wow. Okay. So your gross profit shrinks from $175 down to maybe $40 or $50 a file. I mean, you are officially out of the high margin game and entirely dependent on volume.
You have to be a volume player.
But here's the crazy part. You can't just expand that volume by blindly opening up shop in neighboring states because there is no such thing as a universal federal notary commission.
No, there isn't. Real estate law and notarization are hyper-local. I mean, a commissioned notary in Virginia has zero legal authority to just cross the Potomac River and execute a real estate closing in Maryland.
Right.
If you want to build a regional footprint, you have to build an entirely new network of locally commissioned professionals in every single state. And every state has a wildly different paradigm for who is legally allowed to coordinate these closings.
It's insane. It's honestly like trying to build a fast food franchise, but every time you cross a county line, the local government doesn't just change the health codes. They legally require you to cook entirely different recipes using different equipment.
That is a perfect analogy. The regulatory patchwork is staggering. Take California, for example. They operate under a strict escrow state paradigm.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to run an independent agency there, you need a corporate escrow license, a $15,000 notary bond, and they mandate physical journals with actual thumbprints for fraud prevention.
And then you contrast that with Virginia. Virginia operates as a RESA state, governed by the Real Estate Settlement Agents Act. To operate an agency there, you don't just get a simple business license. You actually have to register directly with the Virginia State Bar and submit your escrow accounts to stringent annual audits.
And then Maryland takes it to a whole different extreme. They treat it as a professional insurance license state. You're required to hold a title insurance producer license, a TIP-T license.
Whoa.
And to secure that, the state mandates a massive $150,000 blanket fidelity bond plus a matching surety bond.
It makes you wonder, honestly, if the localized rules are this incredibly strict and expensive to comply with, is regional scaling even worth the headache?
It is absolutely worth it, but only for the operators who figure out the logistics, simply because the sheer volume of real estate transactions in the United States is astronomical. But to survive that expansion, you have to stop thinking like a technician and start thinking like a compliance architect.
Which brings us to what is probably the single biggest existential threat to this entire business model, and that's labor classification.
The W-2 versus 1099 minefield. This is huge.
It really is. We're going to take a quick commercial break right here, but when we come back, we're going to dive straight into this labor classification nightmare. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Notary Knowledge. Okay, so let's say you've figured out where you are legally allowed to operate. Now you have to figure out how you classify the people you're actually dispatching to do the work.
Right, because when you're a solo notary, you're your own boss.
Mm.
But the second you become an agency, this massive legal question looms over you. Are the hundreds of notaries you hire your actual employees, or are they independent contractors?
And historically, this entire industry has relied heavily on the 1099 independent contractor model.
But states are aggressively closing that loophole. California's Assembly Bill 5 and Assembly Bill 2257 completely upended the gig economy by codifying something called the ABC test. They essentially looked at companies treating workers like full-time employees without giving the benefits and decided to drop the hammer.
It's a brutal, unforgiving legal framework. The ABC test starts with the presumption that every single worker is an employee. It is entirely up to the hiring entity to prove otherwise by meeting 3 specific conditions, which are prongs A, B, and C.
And if you fail even one,
If you fail to prove even one of those prongs, the worker is legally classified as an employee, period. Suddenly, your agency is liable for years of back payroll taxes, workers' compensation, overtime, and mileage reimbursements.
look at Liam out in Oregon as a perfect scenario for this. Liam scaled up his agency, had about 50 notaries running around doing closings for him on 1099s. He got hit with a state payroll audit, failed the classification test, and the back taxes and penalties essentially bankrupted his agency.
It happens all the time.
Let's look at prong B specifically, because this seems totally impossible to navigate. Prong B states that to be considered an independent contractor, the worker must perform work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business.
Yeah.
How does a signing agency legally hire a signing agent? I mean, the entire business of the agency is loan signings.
It's a massive structural paradox.
Yeah.
The mobile notary is performing the exact core function of the business.
That's like a bakery trying to legally claim to the IRS that its bakers aren't actually central to the business. Oh no, we just coordinate flour and sugar logistics. These folks in the aprons are just independent pastry contractors.
Right.
That would never hold up in court. So are agencies just forced to abandon contractors and put everyone on W-2 payroll?
Not necessarily. The law does offer one potential escape hatch, which is known as the business-to-business or B2B exemption. But I need to be clear, it is not a simple workaround. It is an absolute obstacle course. To bypass the ABC test using the B2B exemption, the agency and the contractor must meet 12 strict criteria.
12 criteria. And these aren't minor details, right? The subcontractor has to have a separate business location. They have to actively advertise their services to the public. And they even need the legal and operational ability to hire their own employees.
Exactly. This creates a heavy divergence in how agencies scale. Some founders look at those 12 criteria, realize the risk of an audit is just too high, and bite the bullet. They shift entirely to a W-2 employee model, accepting the lower profit margins in exchange for sleeping soundly at night.
Which makes sense.
But other agencies, they strictly curate their 1099 network. They refuse to hire part-time gig workers. They will only contract with notaries who operate as formal LLCs, who work for multiple different agencies, and who clearly market their own independent businesses. They build a rock-solid paper trail proving the notary is a genuine standalone enterprise.
And even then, it's a delicate balance. Think about Greg down in Texas for a second. He runs a massive operation, and he wants his notaries to provide top-tier uniform service. But if he provides them with mandatory specialized training on how to represent his brand, he risks failing the control aspect of independent contractor status.
Yes. The more you train them, the more they look like employees.
Exactly. Okay, so let's assume you miraculously thread that legal needle. You build a fleet of compliant LLC contractors, you hand them your best, most lucrative title company clients to service, and the business is humming. Now you face a completely different nightmare. What stops that independent contractor from realizing they don't need you, walking right into the title company, and just stealing your client?
Ah, the classic middleman dilemma. You are the entity introducing the supplier to the buyer. Traditionally, businesses protected that relationship by making contractors sign strict non-compete or non-solicitation clauses.
But those contracts are basically dead paper in many jurisdictions now. California's Business and Professions Code 16600 is famous for making restrictive covenants that stop someone from engaging in their lawful trade completely void.
And recent legislation has weaponized that code. Under California's SB 699, non-competes aren't just void, they are actionable.
Wow.
Yeah, it is now illegal for an employer to even attempt to enforce a void non-compete.
Take Sophie in Florida as a scenario. She ran an agency, had a notary sign a strict non-compete. And when that notary moved to California and started working with Sophie's national clients, Sophie tried to enforce the contract. Under these new laws, Sophie's the one who can actually be sued for damages just for trying to enforce a contract they both willingly signed.
It's wild, but that's the law. The courts heavily favor worker mobility and open competition. You cannot legally ban an independent contractor from offering their services to your client.
So as a business owner, I spend years courting a title company, I hand a contractor my best client, and I just have zero power to stop them from cutting me out.
Not zero power, but close. There is one narrow, highly specific window of defense remaining, and it revolves around trade secrets.
Protect the data, not the relationship.
Precisely. You cannot stop a notary from soliciting a title company. But you can use highly tailored confidentiality agreements to stop them from using your proprietary information to do it.
Give me an example of that.
Let's say your agency has spent years building a proprietary database of specific escrow officers, right? It includes their direct cell phone numbers, their internal pricing preferences, and their specific workflow quirks. If a notary downloads that database and uses it to poach your clients, that is a misappropriation of trade secrets. You can take legal action on that.
Okay.
But a broad clause simply saying you can't work for anyone we introduce you to, completely unenforceable.
That is a massive paradigm shift for a founder. You have to aggressively protect your internal data because you can no longer protect the external relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, let's assume your contractors are legal and your trade secrets are locked down. The business is growing fast. The sheer volume of that success triggers a completely different crisis. You are going to run out of cash.
Yeah, the working capital crisis. It's inherent in logistics. When a regional firm acts as a B2B partner, they rarely get paid at the closing table. They bill the title company or the mortgage lender.
And those massive corporate clients dictate the terms, usually operating on net 30 or even net 60 payment schedules. You do the work today, and they pay you 30 to 60 days from now.
Exactly. But the independent notary who actually drove to the house, burned their own gas, and executed the signing, they aren't going to wait 2 months to get paid. If you want to retain top talent in your fleet, which you desperately need to meet those strict B2B criteria we just talked about, you have to pay them in 7 to 14 days.
And that timing mismatch is what kills scaling agencies. Let's run the math on that cash flow gap. If your agency is doing 1,000 closings a month and you are paying out $100 per closing to your contractors, you have a $100,000 payroll due in 2 weeks. But you won't see a single dime from your corporate clients for another month or more. You have to float that massive amount of cash yourself.
It is terrifying. So how does a small business transition into scaling when they have to front 6 figures of capital they simply don't have in the bank?
The primary financial lever agencies pull here is accounts receivable factoring. You're essentially selling your unpaid invoices to a third-party financial institution in exchange for immediate cash.
It's basically taking out a payday loan for your business. You go to the factoring company and say, hey, this massive title company owes me $100,000 next month. If you give me $95,000 today so I can make my payroll, you can collect the full $100,000 when they finally pay.
That is the exact mechanism. You get a cash advance, usually within 24 hours, which provides the liquidity you need to keep growing. But that liquidity is expensive. Factoring companies typically charge between 1% and 5% of the total invoice value per 30 days.
And you have to choose between recourse and non-recourse factoring, right?
Yes, and that dictates who holds the risk. Recourse factoring has lower fees, but if your corporate client ultimately goes bankrupt or refuses to pay the invoice, you, the agency, have to eat the loss and pay the factoring company back. Non-recourse factoring charges higher fees, but the factoring company assumes the credit risk. If the client defaults, the factoring company takes the hit, not you.
But let's look at the margins again. If your gross profit is only $30 to $50 a file, giving up 1% to 5% of the gross invoice is a massive chunk of your actual net profit. Is this actually a smart growth strategy, or is it just a financial band-aid masking an unsustainable model?
Well, it depends entirely on your growth trajectory and your pricing power. I mean, if paying that factoring fee gives you the cash flow required to take on 500 new clients that you would otherwise have to turn away, the sheer volume of new profit far outweighs the percentage fee. It transforms dead invoices into liquid working capital.
Okay, I see.
But if your margins are too tight to begin with, the compounding fees can absolutely bleed your business dry.
That makes total sense. Okay, so you've got the cash flowing, your labor is perfectly classified, and you're executing thousands of signings a month across multiple states. Here is the scary reality. With massive volume and incredible speed comes the statistical guarantee of human error. Someone, somewhere, is going to mess up a document. So you need a massive safety net.
Absolutely. In real estate, the cost of a mistake is astronomical. Look at Mia up in New York. She had a contractor miss a single signature on a deed, which miscalculated a rescission date. That one mistake delayed a multi-million-dollar commercial closing, locked a business out of their property, and caused severe financial harm. The lawsuit started flying almost immediately.
Oh, wow. And the insurance landscape here is widely misunderstood. Most people outside the industry think, oh, the notary has a state bond, everyone is protected.
That is a very dangerous misconception. A standard notary bond protects the public from the notary's mistakes. It does not protect the notary. If a bond pays out to a victim, the bonding company will aggressively come after the notary's personal assets to recoup their money.
Right. And to protect the notary, there is standard notary errors and omissions insurance, or E&O. But this only covers mistakes made during the physical statutory act of notarizing, like stamping in the wrong spot or failing to properly check an ID.
Which is why specialized signing agent E&O policies were created. These cover the administrative mistakes that surround the notarial act. For example, if the notary forgets to have the borrower sign the notice of right to cancel, or if they accidentally drop the physical loan documents in a puddle on their way to the FedEx drop box.
It happens. But here is the kicker for the person scaling the business. If you're the CEO of the regional agency, the individual contractor's insurance isn't enough to protect you. A scaling agency needs a corporate professional liability policy with a very specific rider called a vicarious liability endorsement.
This is critical for survival. Look at a scenario with Sam down in Georgia. Sam ran a massive agency, and one of his subcontractors completely botched a closing package. Standard corporate liability policies often explicitly exclude the actions of independent contractors. But under the legal doctrine of respondent superior or corporate principal liability, Sam's agency was still sued for the mistakes made by the subcontractor he dispatched.
Yes. Let that sink in for a second. As the CEO, you are financially on the hook for a missed signature made 500 miles away by someone who isn't even technically your employee.
It is terrifying.
It is the burden of logistics. The vicarious liability endorsement ensures that your corporate policy will step in and fund your legal defense if a title company sues your agency because of a catastrophic mistake made by one of your 1099 contractors in the field.
Wow. So to manage the hyperlocal state laws, enforce the 12-point B2B contractor tests, bridge the massive cash flow gap of net 30 terms, and track errors and vicarious liability across hundreds of simultaneous signings.
Yeah.
Human management just hits a wall. You literally cannot run this with a spreadsheet and a cell phone anymore.
You absolutely cannot. This brings us to the final necessary piece of the scaling puzzle, which is the tech infrastructure. To transition from a solo operator to a regional enterprise, you have to implement highly specialized logistics technology.
We're talking about heavy-hitting platforms in this space, like SnapDocs, ZigSig, and Signing Order. And these aren't just fancy digital calendars, They are incredibly sophisticated logistical hubs.
Their true power lies in direct integration. These platforms plug straight into the software that title companies already use, known as title production systems, or TPS major software suites like SoftPro or Qualia.
Right, so when an escrow officer at a title company needs a notary, they don't even have to pick up the phone or send an email. They literally click a button inside their own software, and the order details, the consumer data, and the encrypted closing documents flow instantly and automatically into the signing agency's platform. It completely eliminates manual data entry, which eliminates transcription errors.
And from there, the agency's algorithm takes over. It automatically routes the order to local notaries, but it doesn't just blast an email to everyone in a 50-mile radius. It acts as a compliance filter. It cross-references active state credentials, annual background check statuses, and past performance ratings.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It ensures that only the closest, highest-rated, and fully legally compliant notary is even offered the job.
And it tracks every milestone in real time. Did they confirm the appointment? Did they download the document securely? Did they upload the scan backs for quality control review? It even automates the payouts and generates the 1099 tax forms for your accountants at the end of the year. I mean, it is literally an automated air traffic control system for highly sensitive legal documents.
It really is.
But I have to ask, by relying entirely on an algorithm to assign work, don't you destroy the human relationship building that made the solo notary successful in the first place?
That is the trade-off of scale. Yes, the algorithm removes the friendly, personal chat between the agency owner and the notary, but it replaces that warmth with unyielding reliability, speed, and compliance. Ultimately, a massive title company doesn't want a friendly chat. They want a flawless, secure, and rapid execution of their closing. The technology delivers that at a scale that humans simply cannot match.
So bringing all these threads together, scaling this kind of business is truly a metamorphosis. You are shifting from being a technician, the person sitting at the kitchen table pointing at signature lines, to being an architect. You are designing complex systems, legal frameworks to handle labor classification, financial pipelines to float cash flow, and technological networks to automate compliance and logistics.
And for you listening, whether you are in real estate, the gig economy, or any service-based industry, the lessons here are universally applicable. Understanding the profound friction between labor laws, cash flow, and technology is the actual secret to scaling any operation without imploding.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final forward-looking thought based on everything we've unpacked today. We spent all this time talking about scaling human logistics. But as remote online notarization, or RON, becomes universally accepted across all 50 states, and as artificial intelligence becomes capable of instantly verifying digital documents and human identities with zero error, will this entire regional signing agency model eventually become completely obsolete?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Will the local, independent mobile notary be replaced by massive, centralized, automated national hubs?
The technology is certainly pushing the entire industry toward centralization. The ultimate question is whether the deeply human element of witnessing and guiding a consumer through the most complex financial transaction of their life can ever be fully automated away.
Something to ponder as you look at the future of service industries. Because remember, scaling isn't just about hiring more people sometimes. It's about realizing that hiring people the old way might just be the very thing that breaks your business.
If you have questions about anything we covered today, email your questions to derek@dereksperl.com. We will try to answer as soon as possible at the end of our shows.
Credits: Exec Producer Derek Spruill, Lead Writer Marylyn Lee Trotter, Graphics Eddie Montes Travis, Music Thomas Bynum, produced by Magnificent Works Business Solutions. Don't just be listeners of the knowledge, be doers of the knowledge. This is Notary Knowledge. Until next time.
Need a blueprint to start your mobile notary business? Don't stumble through the process. You need an outline for success. Introducing the Mobile Notary Blueprint by Derek Spruill. Build your thriving mobile business and protect yourself from costly mistakes with expert advice. Buy your copy of the Mobile Notary Blueprint by Derek Spruill from any online bookstore, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble Bookstore, booksofmillion.com, bookshop.org, Mobile Notary by DerekSpruill.com, or download from Kindle and build your successful notary business today.